This Omar, and just on here real quick talking about or recapping the game, Monday night game between the Commanders and the Eagles, and what I thought about it and all that good stuff. Um, it was kind of like a dominating performance for Washington. You know, uh, they kind of had command of the game from start to finish, and sometimes you know you could just I guess you just knew it was just one of them type of nights, especially for Washington. They had everything kind of clicking on all phases of the game, and that's the only way you want to beat like a team that's like a top tier team and whatnot. And so it started from everything, even as far as time of possession. They had it for 40 minutes, and the Eagles only had it for 19 minutes. Third down efficiency, Washington just stayed on connecting 12 of 21. Eagles had 5 of 8, and the one fourth down that the Commanders went for, they made it. And so they forced the most turnovers out of the Eagles. Coming into the game, they only had 3 for the whole season, and they had 4. 3 fumbles lost. So it's like as soon as Philly make a play, they would always have to give it up because they'll just create a turnover. So it was it was just something that nobody saw. You know what I'm saying? Eagles was favored to win heavy, and then the fact that Washington flipped it, it was one of the few games this year. Well, I think the only game really that had literally everybody to kind of put on display the personnel that they have. Which, if you look on paper, they got one of the better personnel groupings, like just position to position, all the way down to the tight end. They pretty solid. They can really go blow for blow with anybody. And with Tyler Heineke, he's an interesting dude because he ain't really all that. But for some reason, man, they when compared to how they were with Wentz, they play more harder and more confidently. Like Heineke just was the person that just, as far as that offense, he's more comfortable, and you could tell like he plays with the confidence that Wentz was supposed to play with. But yeah, man, you run down the stats real quick on the Eagles. Hurts, he kind of had a solid game. He normally passed anywhere from like 160, 170 to about 225, 250. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Had a decent pass rate of 94.2. As a team, they ran the ball for only 94 yards. That's kind of low for them. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, like they didn't really have the ball, so they stats really ain't going to really show like anything. Sanders, he had 12 carries, 54 yards, a 4-yard carry, but he only had 12 carries. You know what I'm saying? No receptions. Hurts, he only had 6 for 28 and a touchdown. So they didn't really have enough to kind of generate the type of offense they need, and they're more built to be in the lead as opposed or is a difference between, or is like a back and forth type of game where you score, I score type of deal. But I think if a team gets too far ahead of them, it's like Eagles is one of them teams where they're like too unfamiliar with that position, and they don't look the same when they got to play, like as far as in that role. You know what I'm saying? They more comfortable if they own the sticks and you got to chase them in order to get the lead and take the win. So that's one of the things like you could tell. Every game they kind of they didn't really trail much this season. So you look at receiving the ball. Watkins was their leading receiver, 4 for 80. He caught a 50-yard bomb. But Smith caught a touchdown and Goddard caught a touchdown, but he looked hurt. So I guess we'll see later on today what they said, how significant it is. But they gonna need him as far as like on the back end push. AJ Brown had one of his worst games of the season. He only had one catch for 7 yards. So like I said, the Washington defense just was on their ass. You know what I'm saying? Goddard fumbled the ball, Watkins fumbled the ball, Smith fumbled the ball. So it's like they was just being more opportunistic as far as the Washington defense. Philly had 3 sacks, QB hits. They only had 4. And that's surprising because like they was on the field for most of the game, and they ain't really do nothing. You know what I'm saying? And you flip it to Commanders. Tyler Haneke, he only had 211. 17 completions, 29 attempts, but he ain't really supposed to be throwing that bitch all over the place. But I guess it's good to have that personnel because you can if you got to get into a shootout. He had the interception, but the interception was kind of like he went for it on fourth down on a play. He didn't really have to do that, you know what I'm saying? But he just took a chance, you know what I'm saying? He could have just kept throwing it underneath and just kept the sticks moving. But that was only bad play that he did. Robinson, he chimed in with 86 yards. And as a team, they ran for 152, but they had a 3-yard curry, 3 yards, per carry, and they had 2 touchdowns. Gibson and Robinson both got into the end zone. And McLaurin, he was doing this thing. I mean, it's like they couldn't even stop him, man. Philly got one of the better tandem as far as cornerbacks. And he was dicing. I can't remember specifically who he was checking because it was either Slade Jr. or Broadbury. But they was getting a heavy dose of his ass. He caught 8 for 128. And that was it. Samuels only had 28, and Dasa, finally came back after a few weeks of being hurt, and he only had one catch because he didn't get too many targets. But they just kept within themselves. But just even the play calling when they could decide to run the ball, when they do a sweep, what I'm saying, the Samuels, Robinson run, then they knew when to bring Gibson in, and then they knew when to just throw the ball to McLaurin and stuff like that. So it was just a smooth, not really like tense, right? You feel me? Like they kind of was the one that was playing like the better team, you know what I'm saying, for most of the night. And yeah, it was like I said, it's a good performance. They got something to build on. The only thing that might hold them back is Heineke. So if they can find a way to get a better quarterback, which I mean they thought they did when they went for Wentz, but I don't know. Wentz just I don't know. Maybe he's not a guy that can play in a system, and he got to be a guy where he can freestyle more than anything. If he could do that, he might succeed like his early years in Philly. But I don't know, the way he been getting hit, and he kind of like, I don't know, he looks shot, but we'll see if he could turn that around. But that's how he looked in Indy on the back end of they schedule last year, and then how they started with him this year in Washington. He didn't, for some reason, he didn't grab the concepts they was trying to teach in they offense or whatever. So they went ahead, they get a solid win in Philly on the road in a divisional game. So that's something that they probably could they could and they played pretty good versus Minnesota last week. You know what I'm saying? If it wasn't for Minnesota standing tall, and they could have got that game, but it's just they was just locked in Minnesota. You feel me? But they was in command of that game, and then Minnesota had that crazy comeback in the fourth quarter. But so far, how you can explain their season is they started off real slow, looking real bad, but now you can see they kind of turn into like a typical Ron Rivera team, where even in Carolina, he had some season where they jumped out the gate and they was hot for the whole season. But typically, he's phenomenal with making different adjustments and whatnot. And what you see right now is, when they inserted Heineke into the offense, now they felt like, okay, the quarterback, we know what this quarterback is, and so we're gonna try our best not to put him into no predicaments where he gotta play, outside of himself. And so that's, like I said, they got the personnel where if they have a better quarterback, he probably could look even better. But for what they're asking of him, I think he's doing the job. You know what I'm saying? Just don't turn over the ball and we good. And they still doing all this without Chase Young. So eventually Chase Young gonna come back and help that defense out. You know what I'm saying? But they secondary played their best game, and definitely their how they was flying to the ball on defense. So that was like hands down. They all should get ton of props. You know what I'm saying? Like, they did it on the road. It wasn't like it was in Washington. So yeah, that's how I took on it and all that. So yeah, thanks for listening.